Welcome to the video. Maybe you're here because you're trying to change the contents of a file on some remote server, and the only way that you can do that is by using a terminal-based text editor like Vim. And in this video, we're going to go through all of the basics of Vim. I'm not going to make you an expert in Vim, but you'll walk away with at least a basic understanding of how to kind of navigate around this text editor. This video assumes that you have a basic understanding of the terminal, you know how to open it up and kind of use it. If you don't, go to this video that I created and check that out and come back to this video. Couple other things before we start. If you don't have Vim installed, skip to the end of this video. I kind of put all that stuff at the end if you need help installing. And then finally, if you want to continue your journey and get better at Vim and go, more advanced, I suggest checking out Learn Vim Script the Hard Way, which I'll leave a link to in the description. At this point, after you've liked and subscribed to the channel, we will start the video. Let's jump in. So the biggest thing that you have to understand about Vim is that it is very keyboard based. There is no clicking around. You basically use your keyboard for absolutely everything. And for that reason, I have a keyboard up here that's going to actually track what I'm typing so that you can kind of follow along with the keystrokes that I'm making as I'm showing you them. The first thing that I'll say is that if you've installed Vim, you also have this thing called Vim Tutor. You can type this into your terminal if you've got Vim installed, press enter, and it looks like I got some sort of error coming up, but it's going to open up and it's going to say welcome to the Vim Tutor. I've got the text blown up here, but this is basically something that you can go through that has all of the basic commands of Vim. And if you look at it with smaller text than I have on the screen here, it will make a lot more sense. So just know that this is here, and if you forget anything that I say during this video, like we're going to cover most of this, but if you forget anything, you can just type Vim Tutor, open that up, and find quickly the command that you need. And you can do that without ever leaving the terminal. So let me get out of this because we're going to actually learn most of what we see in Vim Tutor, but I just wanted to show you that. Since Vim is a text editor, we have to actually have a file to edit. So what I'm going to do is create a Vim Basics text file. This could be any sort of file. It could be a code file, JavaScript, Java, C, C++, whatever. Doesn't matter. You can edit anything with Vim. And then to enter Vim, I'm just going to type Vim for the Vim executable, and then I'll pass in the file or the file path that I want to open and press enter. Now, once I get into Vim, maybe ironically, the first question that most people will have is, well, how do I get out of Vim? I've gotten in here okay, it's pretty easy, but how do I actually exit Vim? Now, the way that you do that is by typing colon and then Q and pressing enter. And that's going to exit out of Vim. Now, let me get back in here and show you something. And what I'm going to do is type colon Q again and press enter, and you'll see that it doesn't do anything. This time, rather than the colon Q going at the bottom left, it actually types into the file. And the reason it's doing that is because I maybe a little bit sneakily typed something that changed the mode that we were operating in. If you rewind the video right before I got in here, you'll see the I being pressed, and what that did was actually enter me into insert mode. So there are a couple of modes within Vim, and based on the different mode that you are currently in, the keyboard is going to do different things for you within the Vim application. So in this case, we are in insert mode, so I can actually type letters. I can use the tab, I can press enter, I can do everything that I'd normally be able to do on a keyboard within Vim and actually edit the file. That's great and all, that's exactly what we want with a text editor, but you might be asking, well, once I'm in this insert mode, how do I actually get out and close the file? Well, to do that, all you have to do is press escape. And when you press escape, that's going to enter you back into the normal mode, which is what you're always going to be dropped into when you enter Vim. And from normal mode, you can actually type colon, which is kind of the command mode. So once you type colon, your cursor goes to the bottom left and you can type different commands. And in this case, I'm going to type Q. Now when I press enter here, it's going to give me an error. And the reason being is because I have not saved the file, but I've made changes. And in Vim, you have to be very explicit with whether you want to save the file or not. Now in this case, I've just got gibberish in the file, so I want to just delete out and not save it. And the way that I can do that is by typing :Q and then an exclamation mark at the end, which means force. So I'm going to force close this without saving. You'll see when I enter back in here, I don't have any text. That's because I didn't save it. Since I don't have any text in here, I'm going to exit out :Q, and I'm in normal mode. And what I'm going to do is open up this little JS file that I created. It's just a simple function. It doesn't do anything spectacular, but it gives us something to work with here. So I enter in, I'm in normal mode, and in order to actually navigate around this file, I have to use a certain set of keys. If you've ever played computer games or anything like that, this won't, really surprise you, but the keys that we're going to use would be H, J, K, and L. And these are going to actually allow us to navigate around this file and go to the place that we want to edit. So let's say that I want to edit that console log statement. All I do is press J to go down, then I press L to go to the right on the line. So if I wanted to maybe change this console log statement, all I would have to do is use the H, J, K, and L keys to navigate around, go to where I want to enter my text, and press I. Once I press I, you can see in the bottom left I'm in insert mode, and I can add in something like is the answer or something like that, and that would be a valid way to write that function. Once I'm done, again, I press escape to go back into normal mode, but this time what I want to do is actually close and save the file. So to do that, I type :Q, and then remember, if I just press enter, it's going to yell at me because I haven't saved it, and all I have to do to save it is type W. So we're going to quit and we're going to write to the file. So if we do that, it's going to throw us an error because I'm being dumb and that's not actually a command. You have to switch those, not QW, but WQ, and that's going to save and close the file. Let's jump back into that JS file again, and remember we get dropped into normal mode so we can use our H, J, K, and L keys to navigate around the file. And you'll probably notice that it's very hard to get used to moving around with those keys. And what I would say to that is I would jump into this cheesy little game called Vim Adventures. And what this does is it drops you in and uses these keys to actually move around within the game. So you'll see on my screen I have this little grayed out box, and I can move it around using the Vim keys, and then I have to basically navigate around this maze to go talk to different people and eventually get this key that's over to the right side of the screen. And not only will this teach you the basic navigation in Vim, but it's also going to teach you a lot of the other commands. And it's probably a good substitute to the Vim tutor or even this video. It will really teach you Vim well, and I would highly recommend checking it out. But you didn't come here to get referred to another resource, so let's keep going here. The next thing that I want to cover is something that you will definitely need to do when writing in Vim, and that is delete something. So there's a couple ways that you can actually go about doing this. The first way is you can go to the area that you want to delete. So let's say we want to get rid of this right here. And I just press insert, or I press the I key to go into insert mode. And then I press backspace until I've deleted everything and I guess more that I want to. And once I've done that, I can press escape to go back to normal mode. And if I wanted to, I could type WQ to save the changes and quit. But there's also something that you can do when you're in normal mode that is very useful, and that is the undo key. So all I have to do is press U, and that's going to undo the change that I just made. And I can press it again and again to undo previous changes. So that's a quick way to revert your changes. And if you wanted to redo, you just press Control R. And by pressing Control R, you're just going to get the changes that you just undid back. I want to show you one more thing, so let's press undo. This will give us back the thing that we want to delete. And we're still in normal mode. We're not in insert mode anymore. So press I to go into insert. I can type, escape to go in normal, U to undo, and now we're still in normal mode. Now what I want to do is delete something without being in insert mode. And the way that I do that is use my navigation keys, so H, J, K, and L, to go over to the beginning of the area that I want to delete. So in this case, I want to delete everything from my cursor over to the right in this console log statement. So all I have to do is press X. And what X will do is remove the current character that you're on. So I'm pressing X over and over again, and that's going to delete the text right there. Now, what if you wanted to delete something a little bit quicker? If you wanted to delete maybe an entire line? Well, to do that, we're going to stay in normal mode. So we're still in normal mode. And all I want to do is, let me go to insert mode to add a line, line that I don't want, or something like that. We'll press escape to go back to normal mode. And then now what I do is I go on the line that I want to delete, and I press D twice right after another. So D, and that's going to actually delete that line. So we deleted this line, but what if we wanted to add the space back? This file is not formatted very well anymore, and maybe I want to add a line back, I just don't want anything on it. Well, the way that you can do that is in normal mode. We're still in normal mode here. All I have to do is hit Shift O. And what that's going to do is insert a new line above the current line that you're on, and then it will enter you into insert mode. So you can see I can actually type things now, and I have to be aware of that because when I did Shift O, it inserted a new line and put me in insert mode. Very useful, just know that it puts you in insert mode. So let's go back, hit escape to go back to normal mode again. We'll go to this line, and what if I wanted to insert a line below it rather than above it? Well, in this case, I just drop the shift key and I press O. And what that's going to do is enter a line below, and once again, I'm in insert mode and I can type. So again, let's go back out, hit escape, get into normal mode. In this case, we have a very simple and small file, but in many cases, you're going to have hundreds of lines within a file, and it's very difficult to navigate around. So to quickly jump to either the beginning or the end of the file, we're going to actually hit the G key. So if we hit Shift and then G, that's going to enter us to the last line of the file. And then if we hit G without Shift twice, so GG, it's going to bring us to the beginning of the file. You also might want to know how to search a file. So all we have to do is hit /, which is going to put us in yet another little search mode. And what I can do is actually type something within the file to search it. I press enter, it's going to drop me to the first occurrence of that. And then I can hit Shift N and N to go back and forth between the different occurrences of that same search term. You can also get pretty fancy and write regular expressions in that search term line, but I'm not going to get into all of that during this video. Yet another really common thing that I'll find myself doing is copy and pasting lines. So let's navigate around HJKL keys, and let's say that we want to copy this line. Maybe maybe let's delete this one between it, so DD, and then let's copy this line and create like another variable such as Z. So all we have to do is hit Y 2 times, and what that stands for is like yank, like you yank the text off the page or something like that. So we'll press YY, and what that's done is actually copied this single line that we're on to the clipboard. Now if we navigate down and press P, it's going to paste the line onto the next line down. So all we have to do to kind of add another line below this is press O and then go back into normal mode with escape, and we've created another variable. Now we need to replace this variable with Z, and there's a couple ways we could do that. We could come after here, press I, backspace, Z, escape to go back to normal mode, or let's undo it with U. So I undid that change, and this time I'm in normal mode. I'm going to go right over that letter, and I'm going to press R. And once I press R, I've gone into a replace mode where now the next letter that I type is going to replace the one that I have my cursor on. So in this case, I'm going to type Z, and that's going to replace it, and we're still in normal mode. So we can still move around the file. We haven't entered insert mode at all. So that's a very quick way to, replace something without having to go into insert, backspace, replace, back to normal mode. So we just copied a line, we replaced a character. Another thing that you might find useful is being able to copy multiple lines at once rather than just one. So in that case, all you would do is YY to copy one line, but if you want to do multiple lines, you have to actually enter a different mode than we have explored thus far, and that is visual mode. So to get into visual mode, remember, to get into normal mode, you either just get dumped into the file, which is automatically normal mode, or you press escape to get back to normal mode. To get into insert mode, you press I. To get out of it, escape. To go into visual mode, you press V. And you'll see that in the bottom left corner we have visual mode. And if we wanted to exit it, we would just press V again, or we could even press escape, and that's going to also exit us out of visual mode. Now, what can you do in visual mode? Well, in many cases, you're probably not going to be using visual mode a ton, because visual mode is great for formatting text and moving lots of text around. And in most cases, if you're doing that, you'll probably be using a code editor like Visual Studio Code, and you won't need this. Nevertheless, there are a couple useful things that I find myself doing within visual mode, and one of those is copying and pasting multiple lines at once. To do that, let's press V, and then from here, we can actually use the H, J, K, and L keys just like we do in normal mode, but in this case, it is going to highlight different lines of text. If we wanted to copy and paste multiple lines, all we have to do is go to the first line we want to copy from, press V to go into visual mode, and then we can use the navigation keys to actually highlight the lines. And I actually selected this wrong, so let me press escape, go back in normal mode, and then let's go back down, go to the beginning of the line, because that's where we want to highlight from. Press V, J, J, J to highlight the line. And now what I want to do is not press YY, but just one time I'll hit Y. And that will yank the lines or copy the lines. And then I'll come down to this new line here. Let me actually give myself some space. And now I'll press P. And what that will do is insert that copied text on the line that I press P on. Now, maybe you wanted to actually cut and paste that text. So let's press U to undo those last couple changes. And we've still got this space down here, so let's go ahead and use that. We'll go into visual mode. We'll select the lines. And then instead of pressing Y, we just press D. And that's going to look like it deletes it, but now we can, come down here and press P, and it will paste that, cut line of text or lines of text. Like I said, you can do a lot more stuff within visual mode. You actually have several different operators kind of listed on that cheat sheet that I had shown you there. But just a couple, just something that you might think of is if you go into visual mode and you highlight some lines and then you press shift and then the bracket, what that's going to do is just tab it over. And so you have a lot of different combinations of keystrokes that you can do to kind of reformat text within Vim, and sometimes that can be really helpful. At this point, you pretty much know all of the basic commands of Vim, and I think that you will feel at least a little bit more comfortable working in a terminal-based environment, maybe managing a couple files on a server and the like. But there are a lot of other features, and you can make this your Vim editor a full-on code editor. And although I have not gone down that route, and I think it's a lot easier to just use a tool or a code editor like Visual Studio Code, some people do. Some people like to really customize out their Vim editor, and especially if you're a programmer, like it's kind of a sense of pride to have a really customized Vim editor. So I'm going to show you a couple things that you can do and maybe research on your own, and hopefully it will just kind of get you started but not, go into too much detail. One of the things that you might be interested in exploring a little bit further is key mappings. So you can actually customize what your keys do in different modes within Vim. So all I would have to do, let's say that I'm getting tired of, going into insert mode, typing stuff, and then going all the way up to the escape key to get back into normal mode. Well, there's a much more fluent keystroke that we can use, and this just happens to not have any other function, so it's a good one to use. And that is the two letters JK, or you could just do JJ or something like that. So what if I wanted to replace my escape key and use JK instead? Well, all I have to do is be in normal mode, type colon, type IMAP, space JK, and then use this special escape indicator and press enter. And now what's going to happen is I can actually go into insert mode, and now watch on my little keyboard, I press JK, and I do that really quickly, and now I'm back into normal mode. So that's a really quick way to do that, and it is only going to apply to the current session that you're in. If you want this to be a long-term solution, if you want this permanently changed, then I'll show you how to do that in just a second. Another thing you might want to know about is how to add, say, line numbers to your editor. So all we have to do here is say set number, and you'll see that we now have line numbers within our Vim editor. So you can quickly see how Vim can be customized to, whatever you want to see within the editor. Now, obviously, the last two changes that I made, if I exit out of here and then go back into math.js, and then I try to, let's say, go into insert mode and then press JK, and if I don't see any line numbers, that's because it was only applicable to the current session. Now, if you want to make this more permanent, you have to learn about something called the vimrc file, which is basically your computer's Vim configuration file, and whatever you set within that file, it's going to apply to all of your Vim sessions. Like I said, there are so many customizations that you can make. I just happen to show you two really useful ones that I think a lot of people use, but there's a lot of other things that you can do. And I'm going to show you how to take those two things and make them permanent so that every time you open up Vim, they are applied. The way that you do this is by adding this file called vimrc in your home directory. So pretty much on any computer, the way that you can do this is by saying touch, and then the little squiggly, /, and then this is important, you need a period or a dot at the beginning because this is a hidden file, and then vimrc. Now this is just a convention. Your Vim terminal, or not terminal, your Vim editor is going to know to look in this location for this exact file. So once we press touch, it's going to create that file, and we can actually use Vim to edit that file. So let's go into the vimrc file, and let's type in those two commands that I had actually typed within the current session so that they're permanent. The first one, let's hit I to go into the insert mode, and we'll say IMAP. We don't have to do the we don't have to add the colon in the beginning because we're in a file, we're not in Vim. Well, I guess we are in Vim, but you get the point. So we'll type IMAP. JK is the key binding that we want, and then we want to replace the escape key, or put an alias to that escape key, as JK. And then furthermore, we want to set the numbers in the file. So let's hit escape, WQ, and that should have applied to all of the new Vim sessions that I open. So if we go to vim math.js, it's going to yell at me because I've actually entered something incorrectly here. Let me jump back into vimrc and show you what I messed up. In this case, I think that I probably just wrote it a little bit wrong. Let's go to quit, open up vimrc again, and it says unknown option numbers. We're going to press enter, and the reason is because I just need to delete that S right there at the end. I did that by going on the letter, pressing X. We will press escape, :WQ to save, and now we can open up math.js, and you'll see that we have line numbers, but also if we wanted to, let's say, shift O to add a line here. We're in insert mode. We can enter down. Let's now press JK really fast, and you can see that we're out of insert mode. So it's a much quicker keystroke, and now we can move up, go into insert mode again, add some text, press JK, move around a little bit, press G or GG to go to the beginning, Shift G, or what is that? I think it's Shift G to go to the end, that's right. And you can see that it's a lot quicker to move around already. So that's just a customization that you can make with the key mappings, and there are, again, a ton of other things that you can do. You can even open up different tabs within a Vim session so that you can work on multiple files at once. Those are obviously out of the scope of like a beginner video here, but I did want to expose you to them, show you that basic Vim configuration file, how to create it, how to add something to it, and show you kind of the benefit of it. And I think with that, that's pretty much all I wanted to cover here. Be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. And if you're continuing on to learn how to actually download Vim from the beginning of the video, the next couple minutes are going to be how to download on different platforms. We will start with Linux, and I'm in an Ubuntu terminal here. All we have to do to install Vim is sudo apt-get update. So we got to update our repositories, and we're going to have to enter our admin password and wait for that to go. Now we just have to say sudo apt-get install vim, press enter, and we've already got it on our computer, so you can see it doesn't download, but that would be how you install for Linux. Now if you want to install for Windows, the process is a little bit different. For Windows, I recommend downloading Vim directly from the Vim creators. So you can just type Vim download, you'll get to this site pretty easily. And from here, you can go to MS Windows and click the self-installing executable. So let's go ahead and save that to my downloads. I'm going to open when done. And it's asking me to confirm my admin privilege. Let's pull this over here. And I'll select English. Sorry, it's going over to my other screen each time. So I'll accept, next. We'll go ahead and click next on all of this. This is where you can set up some like key mappings, but I wouldn't do that right now. And then install, so pretty much all the defaults. It will open this up, you can go ahead and close it. Once you've downloaded Vim from their site on Windows, you actually have two terminals that you could be running it in. So at the top, I've got the classic command.exe. So if we hit the start bar and type cmd.exe, that's how we get to that command prompt. Or we can type in PowerShell, and that's what we're seeing at the bottom here. So we can run in either of these. Most people would probably go with PowerShell. But right now, if I typed in Vim, it's going to give me an error in both of them and say that it's not recognized. And that's because we have to add the executable to our path. So our path is basically tells the system where it needs to find certain programs. And how we change that is by typing in path, which will get us to the edit the system environment variables tab. Sorry, it's opening on my other screen here. Then I'll go to environment variables. In my user variables, I'll look at the path. I'll click edit. And now what I have to do is add a new executable to the path. And so all I have to do is click browse. And then from here, I can go onto this PC, local disk. And remember, this is where we downloaded it to. So you might have seen this path if you scroll back to the download part of this video. So we'll go to program files, we'll scroll down, I see a Vim folder, I see a Vim82 folder under that, and if you actually were to look in a normal file explorer, in the Vim82 folder, that's where the .exe or Microsoft Windows app or executable is actually at. So we just need to grab that folder because that's the folder that the computer needs to look into and press OK. So we'll press OK a couple times. It may not work right away because we have these open, but if we reopen them, so we type Vim And now you can see that we've entered into a blank Vim terminal. So :Q to get out of that, and then just to prove it out, we'll go to PowerShell real quick, and you'll see if you type Vim here, same thing happens. So once you add that to your path, you should be good on Windows. And finally, I jumped over to my MacBook to show you how to download Vim on Mac. Now with Mac, it's a little bit different because it actually comes with the VI editor already, which, as I mentioned earlier in the video, you can kind of go check that out. Type in VI versus Vim to kind of understand the differences between those. So if I were to come in, to a brand new Mac and just type VI, it's going to take me into the Vim editor. So I've already got that, but if I wanted to actually install Vim, which has some additional features over VI, then the way that I could do that is a couple different ways. So one way I could do is actually come to Vim download and go to the download. Let's click on Macintosh, and it'll give you some instructions here. So you could go to get an older binary from the SourceForge project, something like that. You could use the existing VI utility, or you can actually use the Brew package manager to install Vim. And this is how I would recommend doing it. You'll need Brew on your Mac for many, many other things. It's what a lot of people will be using. So just come to Homebrew or brew.sh, copy the install script, go to your terminal, paste that in there, and I'm not going to run it because I've already got it installed, but that's going to run and it's going to take you through a couple of different setup steps. And then once that's installed, all you have to say is brew install Vim. And when you do that, it's going to go out, find the correct binary to install it, and add it to your Mac's path. And once Brew updates and installs, you should be good. You should be able to just type Vim and get into it okay. You might have seen in the installation process here an error. That's just because I had it installed already. So that's how you install it for Mac, and jump to the beginning of the video to get started with the tutorial.